It started when I was a kid, having more interest in playing drums than having friendships. I mean, you're talking about a kid who grows up in a semi-Christian conservative environment. Father's a pastor, grandfather's a bishop, majority of my uncles are clergy. Music was bound to find me. Being at church more often than not, I grew up under the shadow of my parents, both being organists and playing for separate churches. My mom with more of a classy older Baptist type of playing, and my father, on the other hand, having more of a Kojic style of playing. Being in two different atmospheres for church, the different types of musicians I met and watched as a kid fascinated me and led me to wanting to be one of those guys. I wanted to be just like them. I loved seeing the drummers, bassist, and organist or keyboardist keep the choirs afloat and drive the song. Back then, instrumentation was more focused on. Your pianist didn't transpose, your bassist was on point, and your drummer stayed into the pocket until the tasteful lick or drum fill was appropriate. Don't get me wrong though, the choirs and atmosphere was just as pumped as the musicians. Seeing the showmanship and love from the congregation to the musicians gave me life. I too wanted to show the congregation and fellow musicians that I had a gift worth being noticed. As time passed, I had the opportunity to play alongside my parents as a drummer, and I eventually got to the point to where I could hold my own in the service and not have my parents or fellow musicians looking back at me to direct me to keep a steady tempo or to stay in the pocket. Things changed from being around lots of choirs to being in one church due to my father focusing less on playing out and starting his own ministry. I had these skills I've been waiting on so long to impress people with and never actually got the chance to show the new level of skill I reached. One day, my dad bought me an alto sax and thought I should give it a try. He too played alto sax when he was younger, but when I started learning how to play, my view on music changed forever. I joined band, and from the first year I played to the end of my senior year in high school, I was first chair saxophonist. Being in the district honor bands and getting scholarships to band camp at Georgia College and State University, I got to experience being around musicians and people who had a love and passion for learning music. As I studied, I started learning the similarities between all of the instruments and types, how to play them, and how to read and write music scores for multiple instruments, using that theory and newfound knowledge to guide the high school band as a senior drum major. By the time I graduated high school and started college, I had knowledge and practice of more than 16 different instruments. And as far as church goes, I was now the boy who grew up from watching his parents play the organ for services to playing for my own services on the organ. With my first job being a music store, I had endless opportunities to gain knowledge and network. I learned how to record music with professional recording equipment and use the experience I gained to make my first song, Twisted Perceptions. I was always scared to have lyrics in my work that weren't about God because I was a Christian child. I didn't want to make myself look bad and make my parents and my family look bad, so I chose the route of an instrumentalist. Jazz had always fascinated me, listening to Chick Corea, Duke Ellington, Hiromi Uhara, Arthur Tatum, Kenny G, John Coltrane. Those are just some for reference. I mean, they grew on me, and it was easily noticed in my work and style of playing. That one song I recorded was good enough to publish, so I did. Within a day of sharing the song online, just 24 hours, my song Twisted Perceptions had gone on the internet's most shared content website. I started getting that feeling I longed to have as a child. And I used that feeling to write and compose more, creating and building a brand for my work based off of my initials, GRSJR. After a while, my following had reached a couple of thousand people through social media alone. I had been writing so much material I never thought to create an album until a coworker of mine suggested I should try to make a living off of my talent. I took his advice and spent a couple of years composing a list of songs throughout the journey of my life from a kid to that point. By the time I was ready to finish my album journey, I had already turned 21 and had a little bit of life under my belt. Slowly breaking out of the small town Christian mindset, I started writing about my life experiences. I started wanting to break the mold and see what more was out there. When my album released, all barriers fell down. In context, I had no idea where accessible literally came knocking at my front door. My album was streamed in places I never dreamed of going to. Surprisingly, I had more people buying my album from out of state than in state. I used the River Street in Savannah, Georgia to play my saxophone at the late hours of the nights for months consecutively to reach thousands of tourists, racking up sometimes hundreds of dollars in days. After a while, I started to get bored with the same routine of playing in bars and relatively short drives to only get exposure. That's it. Basically, the only one in my hometown with talent because everyone that has talent finds a way to leave. I prayed for change, and then God brought me the woman who has me where I am today. Literally. One day, this same woman, Isabel, and I met by default through a mutual friend, leading me to wonder what life was like where she was from. That place was Denver, Colorado. I took a small trip on my birthday to celebrate another year of life and to spend time with her for 2 weeks. And that exposed my mind to things I'd never seen before. Mountains, the snow, it's just a whole nother world. I flew back to Savannah for a week, packed my bags, and moved to Colorado. As time moved on, I started gaining connections, and my fan base had gained over 10,000 new followers. I quickly began to realize that this was definitely my place to be. This is what I've been longing for my whole entire life, with no interruptions. This is my destiny. I gained so much inspiration, I felt I had to make another album, reflecting life's new changes. So, I did. Destiny.